what I'll do in this next step is I will hold the blade like so over the anvil, and I will come up and down with my hammer right here. And I will knock that in, creating a taper that meets at the bottom of that guard. Now, one trick about this step is don't look at the thing you don't want to hit. Whatever your eyes are looking at, that's where you're going to hit. So keep your eyes on the area you want to hit, and this is where hammer control and a little courage comes in. And you're going to try and stay right on that area there. I'm going to straighten this blade out. All right, here we go. Let's knock that in. Almost there. I've almost got that, the other side of that guard out. Next heat will do it. Here we go. Let's knock that guard into place. All right, we'll finish getting this second knife tapered the way I like it. Now, one thing I'm noticing is I've got a little bit of a depression right in here. What I'll do is I'll go to my rounding hammer and I'll hit everything around that to make a smooth transition. All right, so you can see that we got that depression out. Now we're looking pretty smooth. So from this point on, let's start forging the blade. The blades that I'm planning to make for you guys today, I'm planning to make kind of a straight blade. If we don't do a pre-bend on these blades, what we'll end up doing is flattening one side, which will cause the entire blade to sway back, which is good if that's what you're looking for. If you want that kind of effect, you don't have to do this next step. But if you want a blade that's got more of a straight angle to it, like say this one, you've got to set it up beforehand. In order to set that up, I'm going to pre-bend it in the other direction. You'll see what I mean here. So the bevel's going to be on this side. I'm going to bend everything that way. And I'm going to do that over the horn of the anvil. Then I'm going to straighten it out. So I've pre-bended it. Now as I start beveling, it'll straighten itself out. You can address it as you go, but I just find it easier to do the pre-bend. But you know, if you're doing it, experiment with it, see what you like. Now this one, I want a little bit more of a curve to it, so I'm not going to pre-bend it as much. Okay, so let's start working that bevel. I'm going to go over the horn of the anvil, and I'm about halfway in the middle of the blade. I'm going to turn it. Now, I just did a strip down the center. I want my spine to be the thickest part, and I'm going to have everything taper. So I'll start in the middle. My next heat, I'll go to the edge. And when I go to the edge is when you'll really see it straighten out. One thing I also recommend is get your spine the thickness you want. As in, put a distal taper in it. Thickest at the back, thinnest at the front. That's one of the nice things about a forged blade is you get to forge these things in, whereas in stock removal, you're just using a flat bar and you're cutting it out and you're grinding that all in. Here, you know, you're kind of the creator and you're putting that all in yourself. Okay, starting in the middle of the blade. And I'm on the top of the horn, so I'm forging, I'm not bending. If I was hitting out here, I'd be bending. Now you see how much lighter I'm taking it with these hammer blows compared to when I was originally lengthening. And that's because I need more control. And I'm making sure that blade stays really hot. The thinner the piece of metal is, the quicker it loses its heat. So you'll have less time to work on it. So what you want to do is, as your piece is heating, you always want to be thinking a step ahead. What am I doing next? That way when it comes out, you get right to it instead of pulling it out, looking at it and going, okay, what was I going to do? You've already lost some heat there. One thing I'm going to do for this next step is I'm just going to do an overall straighten of everything. One other thing I'll caution if you're first time doing this is to watch the tip of the blade too. Don't get it too thin or too needle-like to begin with. You'll want to keep some metal there to have some wiggle room as you learn to forge these out. Right now I'm just checking my distal taper and making sure I'm happy with it before I continue to bevel. And just overall straightening. So if you can see that, it's thickest back here, and it tapers nicely to the point. I don't have any fat spots or wiggles, and that's what you're looking for. All right, so moving back on to the bevel. With this pass, you'll probably see the blade straighten out. So I'm hitting on that edge. And you can see that straightened it out. That took our curve right out. Now these fuller marks you're seeing are coming from the bottom of or from the top of the horn. And it's actually, the bottom is moving this way, like I explained earlier about the rolling pin with the P. The bottom's actually moving it that way as I'm shaping it on top, which is giving us a little extra length too. You can see how that one straightened out as well. One other thing I should point out is I'm trying to do an equal amount of hammer blows on each side. I just feel like you get a better blade if you can kind of equalize and not just pound super heavy on one side and super light on the other side. It's a nice habit to get into. Now I'm looking at my bevel, and I want about the thickness of a dime for that bevel. And that's pretty much true if you're doing a railroad spike knife or any other knife. You just want to leave some steel there so you've got steel to work with as you're going through your heat treat and all that good stuff. Now, one thing I'm looking at is I've got kind of a slant here. I'm going to straighten that out real quick while I've got a nice heat. And this is where you start making decisions about your blade shape. I haven't talked too much about it, but you want to just think about the type of blade you're making and the best way to go about executing it. I'm planning to make kind of a straight blade. If we don't do a pre-bend on these blades, what we'll end up doing is flattening one side, which will cause the entire blade to sway back, which is good if that's what you're looking for. If you want that kind of effect, you don't have to do this next step. But if you want a blade that's got more of a straight angle to it, like say this one, you've got to set it up beforehand.